Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, when in your work you find something giving trouble outside, look within and you will find in yourself the corresponding difficulty. Change yourself and the circumstances will change. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, question and answers of 1954, page 393, date 10th November 1954. This talk is based upon Sri Aurobindo's Basis of Yoga, Chapter 2, Faith, Aspiration, Surrender. Question, Sweet Mother, what does this mean exactly? In yoga, it is out of the inner victory that there comes the outer conquest. For this, our Divine Mother says yes. First, you must attain the true consciousness, be in contact with the Divine, and let Him govern your action. And then you can act upon outer circumstances, even actions, and overcome outer difficulties. You must have the inner experience first before hoping to be able to help something external. In fact, everything is founded upon an awareness of the divine consciousness, and unless this is done, all the rest is uncertain. Nothing can be permanently established. It is only after one has become conscious, then one can follow one's path rapidly without fear. Otherwise, one may risk many mistakes going on a false track, says our Divine Mother. Question, Sweet Mother, what does psychic poise mean? For this, our Divine Mother says, psychic poise means the poise of the being which comes from the fact that the psychic, which governs the moments of the being, is the master of all the moments of the consciousness. The psychic is always well poised, so when it is active and governs the being, it inevitably brings a balance, says our Divine Mother. Question, Sweet Mother, last time we read that it doesn't matter what defects you may have in your nature. The one thing that matters is your keeping yourself open to the divine force. Sweet Mother, if one has defects, how can one open to the divine force? For this, our Divine Mother says, I think everyone has defects. So, if it were necessary not to have any defects in order to be open, then nobody could be open. One always has defects to begin with. One always has defects to begin with. One is not made of a single piece. This is the main reason. There are many different parts in the being which sometimes are quite independent of one another and takes hold of the consciousness almost in turn and sometimes even in an altogether regular order. So, when part of the being has a good will and already a kind of perception of what the divine force is, you see, this opens the being and puts it into contact with this force. But it is not always there. There are other parts which come to the front, which have defects, bad habits, and which can veil the consciousness completely. But if one keeps the memory of the part which was open, one can keep the opening all the same, though outwardly the part that is active is not particularly interested and not even able to understand. But the other part can continue to be open and receive the divine force. Question, sweet mother, can one have faith through aspiration? For this, our divine mother says, faith through aspiration? I think so, because it is rare to have it spontaneously, to be born with it. Very few people have this good luck to have a spontaneous faith. But if one is very sincere in one's aspiration, one gets it. Aspiration, says our Divine Mother, can bring everything. Aspiration can bring everything provided it is sincere and constant. One always has a tiny element of faith within oneself, whether it be faith in what one's parents have said or in the books one has studied. After all your education is based upon a faith of this kind. Those who are educated, you have told you certain things you had no means of checking because you were too young and had no experience. But your faith in what they told you, and you go forward on that faith. So everyone has a tiny bit of faith, and to increase it, one can use one's aspiration, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother. In your symbol, the 12 petals signify the 12 inner planes, don't they? For this, our Divine Mother says it signifies anything one wants, you see. 12, that's the number of Aditi, of Mahashakti. So it applies to everything. All her action has 12 aspects. There are also her 12 virtues, her 12 powers, her 12 aspects, and then her 12 planes of manifestation, and many other things that are 12. And the symbol, the number 12, is in itself a symbol. It is the symbol of manifestation, double perfection in essence and in the manifestation, in the creation. Question, sweet mother, what are the 12 aspects, sweet mother? For this, our Divine Mother says, my child, I have described this somewhere, but I don't remember now, for it is always a choice, you see. According to what one wants to say, one can choose these 12 aspects or 12 others or give them different names. The same aspect can be named in different ways. This does not have the fixity of a mental theory. According to the angle from which one sees the creation, one day I may describe the 12 aspects to you, then another day, because I have shifted my center of observation, I may describe 12 others, and they will be equally true. Sweet mother, when does the psychic being lose its poise? Our Divine Mother says, never. Then why is it said, sweet mother, the psychic poise is necessary? For this, our Divine Mother says, this means that help of the psychic poise is necessary. It is not that the psychic being has to become balanced. It is that one must be under the influence of the psychic poise. The psychic is always balanced, but the being is not always under the influence of the psychic, which brings the balance. The influence of the psychic gives the balance, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother. Here it is written, the personal effort has to be transformed progressively into a moment of the divine force. If you feel conscious of the divine force, if you feel conscious of the divine force, then call it in more and more to govern your effort, to take it up, to transform it into something not yours but the mother's. But if one is not conscious of the divine force, for this our divine mother says, you must become conscious. Aspire, ask, aspire sincerely. You see? Generally speaking, you are here. We have a class. We have just read something. You have questions to ask. While you are here, you ask questions and think of the subject. But as soon as you go out or go home, you think of 1,000 other things, don't you? So, how do you expect that you will become conscious of the divine force? We have hardly about half an hour here, and that's not a very long time to become conscious of the divine force. But if it is your sole preoccupation, if truly with all your being you want to become conscious of the divine force, you will be able to. You can't simply because you think about it from time to time. When the subject comes up, you ask yourself, why is it true? How can I do it? And then the next minute, you don't think about it anymore. So, how do you expect this to happen? You must be very attentive, you must be very silent, must observe yourself very clearly, and you must be very humble. That is, be willing not to play a great part in all the story. The misfortune is that usually either the vital being or the mental being or even the physical being is very anxious to play a part, very anxious. So it swells up, takes up a lot of place, covers the rest, and it covers it so well that one can't even become aware of the presence of the divine force because the personal movement of the physical, mind, body, vital covers everything without its own importance. Our Divine Mother says, listen, if every evening before you go to sleep, you take off only a tiny little minute like that, and in this little minute, with all the concentration, you are capable of what you ask yourself to become conscious of the divine force, simply like that, nothing more. In the morning, when you wake up, before you begin your day, if you do the same thing, take a minute off, concentrate as much as you can, and ask to become conscious of the divine force. You will see after some time it will happen. Nothing but these small things, which are nothing at all and take no time. Our Divine Mother says, one day it will happen. Only you must do it with concentration, intensity, and sincerity. That's it. It must not happen that while you are asking for this, another part of your being is telling yourself or telling itself, after all, this has no importance. Or maybe you think of something else, what you're going to put on, the person you meet, 1,000 desires. You must be there fully for 1 minute. Of course, if you multiply the time or the minutes, it goes much quicker. But as I also said, if one is not able to contradict the next minute, the aspiration one had the minute before, it is easier. If not, it pushes sincerity away. Next date, 17th November 1954. This talk is based upon Sri Aurobindo's Basis of Yoga, Chapter 2, Faith, Aspiration and Surrender. Question, sweet mother. Here it is written, the truth for you is to feel the divine in you. The truth for you is to feel the divine in you, open to the mother, and work for the divine till you are aware of her in all your activities. Why has our Lord Sri Aurobindo said the divine once and another time the mother? For this, our Divine Mother says probably he considered these the two aspects of the problem. The truth is that there are people who can more easily get into contact with an impersonal divine than with a personal divine. For them, for certain minds or types of intelligence, it is easier. They understand better or think that they understand better. You see? There are certain, what we could call certain attributes of the divine, which it seems to them impossible to give to a personal being, and so they prefer to have a relation with an impersonal conception of the divine. So for them, he says this. There are others who are able to have both at the same time, one completing the other, but for others still it is an antinomy, a contradiction. So they prefer to choose one or the other. Essentially, it is the same thing. In the human mind, it becomes different. And then man's mind fashions man's consciousness, and for the human consciousness, well, it depends on one's inner attitude and one's taste. The mind always needs to make divisions, otherwise, it thinks that it does not understand. Probably it is to help him in his work so that there may not be someone who says, I don't want the personal divine, so he says, it's all right, turn to an impersonal divine, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother, when we make an effort, there is something in us which becomes very self satisfied and boastful and contented with this effort, and that spoils everything. Then, how can we get rid of this? For this, our Divine Mother says, that's what looks on at what it is doing. There's always someone who observes when one is doing something. Now, sometimes he becomes proud. Obviously, this takes away much strength from the effort. I think it is that. It is the habit of looking at oneself acting, looking at oneself living. It is necessary to observe oneself, but I think it is still more necessary to try to be absolutely sincere and spontaneous, very spontaneous in what one does, not always to go on observing oneself, looking at what one is doing, judging oneself, sometimes severely. In fact, it is almost as bad as patting oneself with satisfaction. The two are equally bad. One should be so sincere in his aspiration that he doesn't even know he is aspiring, that he becomes the aspiration itself. When this indeed can be realized, one truly attains to an extraordinary power. Our Divine Mother says, 1 minute of this, and you can prepare years of realization. When one is no longer a self-regarding being, an ego looking at itself acting, when one becomes the action itself, above all in the aspiration, this truly is good. When there is no longer a person who is aspiring, when it is an aspiration which leaps up with a fully concentrated impulsion, then truly it goes very far. Otherwise, there is always mixed up in it a little vanity, a little self-complacency, a little self-pity also, and all kinds of little things which come and spoil everything. But it is difficult, says our Divine Mother. Question, sweet mother. Here it is written, in this yoga, the whole principle is to open oneself to the divine influence. What does it exactly mean to open oneself to the divine influence? For this, our Divine Mother says, you must try, you must make an effort yourself. To explain is simply to try to give you a formula in the mind or to the mind which allows the thing to be done without any effort. One always have a fine explanation in his head and believes that it is enough for the thing to be realized. But if one does a little, just a little, even very awkwardly, gradually one progresses. One does better and better. When one does it really well, one understands what one is doing, and one also knows how one has to learn to do it by doing it step by step, and that is opening oneself to the divine's influence, says our Divine Mother.
In thee, by thee, for thee we live, and thy law is the supreme master of our life. नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वाय त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्नामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् शान्तिः 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 नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यो न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमवेश वृणुते तेन लभ्यस्तस्येष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम् उत्तिष्ठत जाग्रत प्राप्य वरान् निबोधत शूलस्य धारा निशिता दुरत्यया दुर्गं पथस्तत् कवयो वदन्ति ॐ सत्यं ज्ञानं ज्योतिररविन्द ॐ सत्यं ज्ञानं ज्योतिररविन्द शरणं शरणं मीरा मम शरणं शरणं